I'd made it. That's what everybody said. Journalists, studio executives, agents, my friends, they talked to me like the work was over, like there's nothing left for me to prove. So what's next for Arnold, they would ask, sounding amazed at how far I'd come, and as if they couldn't possibly imagine there's anything more to do. They were thinking too small. My goals had evolved. They were always growing. Another bigger picture had snapped in focus for me. I didn't just wait to be an action star who got top billing. I wanted to be a leading man. I wanted to be the highest paid actor in the business. To do that, I needed to show people that there was more to me than muscle and mayhem. I had to show them my soft side, my dramatic side, my funny side, my human side. I had to do comedies. Nobody thought this was a good idea. Journalists thought I wouldn't be any good. Studio executives didn't think audiences would buy it. My agent thought I'd have to take a pay cut. Some of my friends thought I'd embarrass myself. I beg to differ. The year before, I'd become friends with the brilliant comedic producer and director Ivan Reitman. I told him about my vision and what I wanted to do. He'd seen all these other sides of me that I now wanted to show the rest of the world, and he could see it. He could see what I saw when I pictured the next step of my journey. I had also understood that the Hollywood system is full of naysayers. Their instinct would be to keep me in my lane because that was the easiest thing for them to understand. Arnold is an action star. To send him scripts for more action movies, I couldn't go to a bunch of executives and ask them to consider me for their next big studio comedy. If I wanted to star in a comedy, I would have to bring the two projects to them and make it impossible for them to say no. So that's what we did. Ivan got a couple of writer friends of his to come up with some ideas. Then Ivan and I got together, worked on them until we found out one that we both liked and we both believed the studios would love. The idea became Twins, a buddy comedy about twin brothers, Julius and Vincent, who were engineered in a lab and separated at birth. Then found each other 35 years later. I would play Julius, the perfect one. Vincent, a petty criminal whom Julius bails out of jail when they first meet, would be played by Danny DeVito. We were an amazing team. I'd just come off Commando and Predator. Danny had just done the Romancing the Stone movies after 5 seasons on Taxi, and Ivan had just directed Ghostbusters. Who wouldn't want to make a funny movie with us? It turns out, most of Hollywood. Everyone loved the concept, but some studio executives couldn't get over the idea of me as a comedic lead. They didn't think I could pull off the role next to Danny, who was a comedy genius. Others thought I couldn't pull it off, period, regardless of who played opposite me. And then there were those who got the idea and loved the comedic potential of our partnership, but couldn't handle the price tag when they weighed it against the possibility of failure. All 3 of us were at the top of our game. We didn't come cheap. If the studio paid us our going rate, the movie would be expensive to make, and it would have to do more than just succeed for them to make the kind of profit they wanted. Ivan, Danny and I put our heads together to come up with a plan. We loved the script, and we were confident that the movie would be a success if a studio gave us the money to make it. We just needed to find a way to turn one naysayer into a yay-sayer. Our solution was to reduce the studio's risk as much as possible by taking no upfront money. If a studio agreed to make our movie, all three of us would agree to make zero salary. Instead, we would take a piece of the net profits called back-end in Hollywood language. We would only make money if the studio made money. We recognised that this was a big thing we were trying to pull off. In those days, studios almost never gave back-end to the actors. They still don't. There was real professional risk for each of us with this project. And by deferring our compensation, there was financial risk too. But we thought if we're going to do it, let's commit for real. We found our yay-sayer in the form of Tom Pollock, the president of Universal. Just as Ivan saw in me what I saw for myself as a leading man, Tom saw what we saw as the potential of twins. He even tried to get us to take upfront money, if you can believe that, but we held firm and stuck with the initial plan that got us to this place, and Tom gave us what we asked for. By early 1988, we were in production down in Santa Fe, New Mexico. By early 1989, we'd not only had a presidential premiere at the Kennedy Center for President-elect George H.W. Bush, we'd crossed 100 million at the domestic box office. My first movie to do that. To this day, people don't believe me when I tell them this, but Twins is still the movie I made the most money on in my entire career. There's only one person I have worked with in Hollywood who is crazier than me when it comes to thinking big. James Cameron. Jim and I have been friends for almost 40 years. We've done 3 movies together, 2 of them, Terminator 2 and True Lies, were the biggest movies ever made when they came out. True Lies was the first film to officially have a production budget over 100 million. But where Jim really stands head and shoulders above the rest of us is his ability to go all in on his projects. He's done it time and again. In German, we have a saying, wenn schon, denn schon. Roughly translated, it means, if you're going to do something, do it. Go all out. Jim is the embodiment of that saying. He has always been that way as long as I've known him. I think it's something he developed as a model maker and a production designer early in his career. Those are 2 jobs where your goal is to make things look as realistic and as authentic as possible. To do that, you have to really commit to your task. You can't half-ass it. If you want whatever you're making to be believable, then good enough is never acceptable. It always has to be perfect. You can't miss a single detail. The big things and the little things matter equally. It's the same way in bodybuilding, actually. There are 4 main judging criteria in every bodybuilding competition: mass, proportion, definition, and stage presence and posing. Within each of these categories, there are 1,000 of things you have to work on in order to maximise your score. You have to be able to focus on both the big things and the little things if you want to win. In Miami, in 1968, I lost my first competition in America because I fell short in one of the 4 main categories definition. The winner, a smaller guy named Frank Zane, was much more cut than I was. I was far too smooth. I'd missed a big thing. But then after I moved to Venice a month later and started training at Gold's Gym, I realised that the reason I'd missed that big thing was because I was missing a couple of little things, my midsection and my calves. The pros in America focused way more on the individual muscles of the midsection than we did in Europe. We did sit-ups and knee tucks, typical abdominal exercises like that, to hit the upper and lower abs. But we weren't breaking down our workouts further than that, or at least I wasn't, to target the internal obliques or the transverse abdominis or the serratus muscle under the side of the pec. You can see the difference in pictures of Frank and me next to each other on stage in Miami. I have a normal six-pack, which looks good, but Frank looked like each of the muscles in his midsection was traced out of an anatomy textbook and chiselled from granite. I had to start doing what he and the other American pros were doing, only more and longer. Then there were the cars. They aren't showstoppers like the big muscles or the beach muscles, biceps and delts, but they're just as important if you want to win.
You've got blister calves.
Calves.
And blister calves and triceps.
They're a big part of creating the symmetry of a perfect body according to the Grecian ideal. If you want to be great, you've got to deal with your calves. Unfortunately, because they are slow-twitch muscles that are built to take a beating since we use them every time we walk, calves are notoriously difficult to develop. A lot of guys in those days really struggled to build mass there, so they either just accepted their fate or they forgot about them. It's easy to do them, you think, since they're often covered by pants or gym socks, and it's really hard to get a good look at them even in a gym mirror. But I could see that mine weren't big enough. Calves are basically the biceps of the legs. I had 24-inch biceps. I did not have 24-inch calves. In my mind, that threw my body out of proportion, which jeopardised my chances of winning Mr. Olympia and officially becoming the greatest bodybuilder in the world. I wasn't going to be...
My brother was even more gifted than I was, gosh.
I wasn't going to let a small thing slide and risk it derailing my bigger vision. I came to America to be the best in the world. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it. The day I realised this about my calves, I cut the legs off all my sweatpants so I couldn't avoid seeing them in the mirror while I worked out other muscle groups. Then I started working my calves every day. It used to be the last thing I did before I left the gym. Now it was the first thing I did when I came in. 1,000 pounds on the calf raise machine for dozens of reps, 7 days a week. Not only could I not avoid looking at my calves as I walked around the gym, now my competitors couldn't avoid seeing them either. A year later I won my first of 7 Mr. Olympia titles. Did all those sets of ab exercises and calf raises make the difference? Probably yes, but I guarantee you they would have made the difference if I hadn't done them. Jim gets this. It's one of the reasons Titanic cost $200 million to make, more than any movie ever since made to that point. When he started thinking about making Titanic, he wanted to tell the story of the world's most famous shipwreck in a way no one had ever experienced it before, because he had experienced it like almost no one else had. In 1995, he went all out and all in. He dove to the ocean bottom in a Russian submersible and saw the wreckage of the Titanic with his own eyes. He wanted the audience to feel what he felt when he saw it. He wanted them to feel like they were right there in the middle of the North Atlantic, going down with the ship. He wanted to immerse them in the history and extravagance of the greatest passenger ship ever built. It has to be perfect, he said. So he made it perfect. He built his own Titanic inside a gigantic 40 million water tank right on the beach in Baja, Mexico. The ship was 775 feet long, a nearly full-scale exact replica. It had a front section that could tilt into the water and a large rear section that could detach and drop 90 degrees. Inside the ship, he built sets that could also tilt. On the outside, he built an elaborate camera and lighting rig onto a platform that he suspended from a crane, which moved them back and forth and up and down along the hull of the ship. It was so ambitious, combined with all the special effects work that had to be seamlessly integrated into the practical effects that he and his team filmed on the set. There were so many ways it could go wrong. If every detail wasn't exactly right, the movie could come off as corny or boring or unrealistic. To pull this off the way he envisioned, Jim knew he had to go all the way. No compromises or cut corners, no half measures. Every single detail of the set had to be historically accurate. The carpet, the furniture, the silverware, the chandelier glass, the type of wood for the railings, it was all exactly as it would have been in 1913. He had all the dishes stamped with the White Star Line emblem. He even personally met with all the extras and gave them individual backstories. He went all in and then some. Filming took 7 months. The film debuted in the United States on December 19, 1997. It made $28 million on its opening weekend and crossed $100 million by the end of the year. By the end of its original theatrical release, Titanic would earn $1.8 billion at the worldwide box office, making it the most successful movie of all time. It held that honour for the next 12 years until it was dethroned by an even more ambitious movie, Jim's next progress, Avatar. Did Jim's willingness and ability to go all in like he does make the difference for Titanic and then for Avatar? I don't know, but I guarantee you it would have been the difference if he didn't. This isn't just how you should think about chasing your girls, it's how you should craft them too, no matter how big or small they are, compared to other people's. If you are the first person in your family to go to college, don't just go to get drunk and dick around and walk out of there with a piece of paper. Dream of learning something that will change your life. Dream of really bettering yourself. Dream of the Dean's List, not just of the diploma. If you want to be a police officer, don't just aim for your badge or your pension. Aim for the captain's bars. Aim to do good and to be an example for others. If you want to be an electrician or a car mechanic, don't just aim for having your own shop and then sleepwalk through trade school or take your apprenticeship for granted. Really learn your trade and work to become great as it is so you can be an asset to your community. If your greatest wish in life is to be a parent, don't just pay for things or think that providing is your only job. Be a great role model who raises healthy, loving kids who go out into the world and do great things themselves. What I'm saying is, if you're going to do it. Not just because going all in might be the thing that guarantees your success, but because not going in will absolutely guarantee that you will fall short. And it's just not just you who will suffer as a result. It's like that cheesy motivational saying, shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll end up among the stars. Setting aside that whatever came up with it, or whoever came up with it, took an astronomy class. The point is that if you aim for a big goal and give it your all and you come up short, that's okay, because you still probably done something pretty impressive. Graduated college, become a police officer or a mechanic or a parent and so on. But the flip side of that is also true, and perhaps more important. If you only aim for the smaller goal, the big goal is automatically out of reach. In part, because you are no longer motivated to truly go all in and focus on all the little things that make the difference between greatness and good enough. If I am content with being Mr. Austria or Mr. Europe, I probably don't worry so much about the level of definition in my serratus muscles or about the size of my calves, and as a result, Mr. Olympia is never in the cards for me. If Jim is content about making a fun adventure about the Titanic, he doesn't probably worry about the stamp on a teacup that the audience will never see, or the history of a background extra who will never speak, and we'd never get Avatar. This is not to say that being Mr. Austria or being a fun shipwreck movie aren't also worthy visions to have, or that simply having a diploma or your own garage or a child isn't something you should be proud of. It's just not an excuse to give yourself off less. Regardless of the size of your dream, if you don't push yourself, if you don't give it your all, if you don't cut the legs off your sweatpants, then the situation calls for it. Then you're not only letting yourself down, no man is more unhappy, the Stoic philosopher Seneca said, than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. That's true.
That's good.
Right, what do you think about that?
Thank you. That was Edith Helen Bergman reading from the autobiography of Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger, by his book, How to Be Useful, Stop Being a Bum, Be Useful, Stop Being a Girly Man. I go now. Guten Tag.